These days, you don't even have to intentionally doom scroll. If you're spending any time on any of the news wires or actual news feeds, I mean, this is a common occurrence right here. Headlines like this. Let me read to you this headline on CNN.com. Children and teens are more likely to die by guns than anything else. Of course, they're talking about children and teens in the USA. But, I'm just going to lump all of you Americans in together with the rest of the 8 billion pyramid builders in civilized culture. Children and teens are more likely to die by guns than anything else, is the headline by CNN. This is March 29th, 2023. Guns are the leading cause of death for U.S. children and teens since surpassing car accidents in 2020. Okay? All right, now if you saw the title to this podcast episode, Doomsy is going to tell you, is going to talk about the inevitable solution to school shootings in the USA. I mean, it's inevitable.
Weather warning. Incoming storm.
It's an inevitable solution. And you'll see. This is not, Doomsy, the Doomsy McDoomscroller show is not all about just doom and gloom. Some good news in here. Maybe this will be a relief from such bad news. Okay, to give some context, whatever time you happen to be listening to this, some calendar context. Because every month there's a mass shooting, if we're just going in general. A mass shooting, quite common in a big nation of civilized people. Tennessee Republican responds to school shooting. We're not going to fix it. This is on Yahoo News, this headline. Tennessee Republican responds to school shooting. We're not going to fix it. Okay, now, in revealing to you this inevitable solution to school shootings in the USA, I'm going to talk about this Tennessee Republican's response. We're not going to fix it. For one, he's absolutely right. But what I want to address is why. Why is he right? He doesn't know. He just knows that we're not going to fix it. But I'll tell you the real reasons. Doomsy will tell you the real reasons. And I'm talking about the inevitable solution to school shootings. This is just common sense when you start thinking about it. Doomsy is not any kind of prophet. This is just like forecasting the weather just a few hours from now. For a hurricane. Y'all got a few decades, I think, civilized culture before the whole thing is sunk. Okay, so we're looking at this headline. Tennessee Republican responds to school shooting. We're not going to fix it. Okay, and there's two reasons he's not, but maybe I should get this headline off my canopy. Because as you know, Doomsy is somewhere lost in the multiverse, in another galaxy, it's hard to figure how this could be in any way the Milky Way where I'm at. Oh, and that's one reason why the Doomsy McDoomscroller show is about realistic futurology. Because it might take a few decades. It might take a few decades for me to get back to Earth, or even to figure out where the Milky Way is. And so that kind of puts me in a boat, in the same boat as what, Gen Alpha, Gen Beta. So if we're talking generations with futurology, which you should, I think. And I don't know if you got the video feed of this podcast, but I had to get off that planet. Man, that was just intolerable. Storms. I really would prefer Earth. And it's just hard to believe that I'm going to make it back and there's going to be something left. The futurology and the solution, okay? The inevitable solution to school shootings in the USA. Of course, we want to get to, let's look at this article again, or read it again. There we go. Tennessee Republican response to school shooting, we're not going to fix it. Yeah, he's right. He's right. And here's why. He doesn't admit this. They probably don't even know it. But they're not going to fix it because they're not leaders. They aren't. They're just not leaders. None of those corrupt clowns in Congress are leaders. Not really. None of your popes, your imams, your prime ministers, your senators, your presidents, your CEOs, your influencers, they're not leaders. They're not. Everyone's just along for the ride. You know, the pharaohs, they happen to be, on top of the stampede on some cushy furniture. Most everybody else is boots on the ground, trampling everything underfoot. So, yeah, not leaders. So when this Tennessee Republican says, we are not going to fix it, yeah, believe that guy. He doesn't know why. He probably thinks he's a leader. But he's not. He has no ability to fix this. Okay? Here's the other reason. Here's the other reason why it's not going to be fixed by them. Because the government is all about, every government, every civilized nation in the world is all about just status quo, keeping things basically more or less the same. Keep the stampede moving of your culture. To keep the pyramid building continuing. Now, they're not going to fix it because they can't. They're not leaders. They aren't able to fix anything. And civilized culture ain't going to fix itself. That's for sure. But the other thing is within your culture, within civilized culture, you aren't going to fix this because it's what you do. It's part of what you do. It's a pyramid that started getting built in your civilized nation, Americans. You let those pyramids, you encourage their building in your very short history as a nation. And, civilized culture, you can't stop building pyramids. That's what you do as civilized people, as 8 billion warmongers that you are. Yeah, I get to refer to all y'all in the second person because I've been away from Earth for so long now. I'm no longer part of civilized culture. So, I'll talk more at length in another episode about pronouns. But for right now, I'm talking about all y'all. Okay? You build pyramids. It hasn't stopped. Hasn't stopped. You might be in denial about what's really going on. But it doesn't mean you're in ancient Egypt. You're building pyramids outside of there. They're different shapes now. Maybe it's a skyscraper. Maybe it was a castle, mansion, yachts, or maybe it's just some electronic ledger. It's still building pyramids. And you started building that pyramid. And the good old US of A, right? Land of the free. Land of the fear-mongering. Land of the free. So you started building these pyramids, and you can't stop. You just can't stop building it. That's what it means to be human, according to civilized culture. That's why you're doing that. Building pyramids, that's human existence. Because the only way you can have pharaohs, neo-pharaohs, the only way you can have royalty is to build a pyramid, put them atop it. And having royalty, that's the only way that you can support this delusion of grandeur that you all have, that 8 billion of you think about yourselves. That you're the greatest thing to come along. But not since you're the ones who made sliced bread, right? Greatest thing to come along since the early universe. You think you're the purpose of the whole universe. You're right. You're made in the image of gods. Actually, you made the gods in your image, but that's your thing. And you support that delusion of grandeur by having pharaohs, neo-pharaohs now, right? What you got? How many levels of neo-pharaohism? Well, the uber wealthy or anyone who's a millionaire, right? You can say a millionaire, some level of pharaohness. So where do you cut it off? You got one of the ultimate pharaohs running Twitter now. Tweeting, "Oh yeah, the retirement age it is too low." That there's not that there's not more pushback against that, I guess, on his own social media platform is just evidence of how powerful mythology is. Your cultural mythology. That you just think, yeah, the pharaohs, he's going to tweet about the retirement age. The guy who's never really built a pyramid. And even if he was a self-made millionaire, then a self-made billionaire. So, you got him. 100,000 of them? A million pharaohs? Approximately 8 billion pyramid builders, stone draggers. So that's what you do. That's what your culture does. So you've been doing it for 10,000 years, about a dozen thousand years. And it just so happens that an entire continent was recently, dare I say, conquered. Let me explain what happened, right? Genocide and slavery took over a continent when European farmers got to North America. Right? And that genocide and slavery was just so brutal to people that you American citizens were just compelled by civilized culture to just constantly live in fear. And so the gun hoarding, the pyramid building, these particular pyramids are built with weapons and ammunition, and you got to keep building them. You can't stop with that. Maybe you can regulate it a little bit. Maybe let's pass some laws, make you feel nice about it, but you're still going to build those pyramids because you just can't stop. That's why it's a mystery. That's why it's a mystery. What happened to the Mayans? Mystery. Or the Hohokam. Maybe not big pyramid builders, but they had a socio-economic hierarchy there in the American Southwest. The Hohokam. And it's a mystery. Because once you start doing this thing, you got to keep doing it. That's what it means to be human. So this Tennessee Republican responds to a school shooting, we're not going to fix it. Yeah, buddy, you're not. You're not going to fix it. None of y'all in Congress are going to fix it. Because you're not leaders. You don't have any real power in your jobs to fix anything. You just don't. And the other reason why you're not going to fix it is because you're there to keep all the pyramid building going. And, guns and ammunition, weapons, firearms, devices of death, that's one of the biggest pyramids you can build. That's a popular thing. So that's going to continue. Now, here's the good news. And let me give you a bit of good news before I get to a couple other articles. That's going to kind of lead to the conclusion of the inevitable solution to school shootings. Okay, because there's a couple other articles. They're not going to fix it because they aren't leaders. And you just can't stop building pyramids anyways. It's civilized culture. You happen to be a country who, right, you encourage these pyramids to be built. So you got to have them now. But here's a bit of good news. You know how I said they're not going to fix it and that they're not leaders? Here's the good news about that. The solution, or I guess the movement, the revolution that's happening right now, or any significant change, well, let's just call it what it's got to be, right? It's got to be a revolution. And it's got to already have some roots and be going right now. If it's the revolution that's going to it's going to have significance. If it's the revolution that's going to make it so Homo sapiens exists at the end of the 22nd century. All right? Let's just get that cut and dry. All right? If it's a solution, if it's the revolution that's actually going to ensure Homo sapiens exists on Earth at the end of the 22nd century, that's the revolution. And here's the good news about that revolution. No leaders. Has no leaders. No leaders required. So don't let it get you down that these corrupt clowns in Congress or anywhere in any government in the world, don't let it get you down that they aren't doing enough, or that they aren't doing anything, or that they're doing the exact opposite of what they should be doing, or what they're sworn to do. Or don't let that get you down. Leaders not needed. Neo-pharaohs are nobody special in the revolution. They just aren't. Because, and here's some more good news, okay? Neo-pharaohs, royalty, upper class, 1%ers, 2%ers, 5%ers, wherever you want to cap the top of the socioeconomic hierarchy, right? Okay, those people, powerless to stop the revolution. And I'm talking about a revolution, of course, that will have Homo sapiens on Earth at the end of the 22nd century, and one that will ultimately, of course, it's going to be the solution to these school shootings. Okay, no leaders needed. Just almost by definition, right? I mean, if any such revolution that had leaders, you know, because then you start talking about a competition thing, leaders versus leaders, because they aren't really leaders. You're just talking about what people on tops of pyramids, the pharaohs, competition between them, and how would something like that succeed, right? No way. Someone challenging status quo. That's what previous revolutions have been about. You know, trying to get different pharaohs, different top dogs to be nice to the masses at the bottom. The problem is the shape. That's why the successful revolution that's coming or not coming, I don't know. I do know that it's coming. It's on its way already. Do I know if it's going to succeed? I don't know. You know, I'm not light years, I'm light decades away from Earth. I can tell you it's happening. There's 1 million people that knew it before Doomsy did. I didn't need this perspective from across the universe to figure out what was going on. I didn't. 1 million other people can see through the cultural mythology of the dominant culture on Earth. Okay, so that's the good news. Right? Tennessee Republicans responds to school shooting, says we're not going to fix it. Yeah. I believe you, buddy. And one reason you're not going to fix it is you're not a leader. And let me just add some good news to that. Leaders aren't needed. They really aren't. Okay, so now let's get to a couple more articles here. And this is going to help lead you to conclude the inevitable solution to these school shootings. And I don't like these articles, but we got to look at them. We got to talk about them, because you know, what are you doing? By you, again, second person plural, I mean you all, 8 billion, particularly Americans, country where I grew up, the civilized nation where I grew up. What are you doing? Okay, if you don't doom scroll, what, you just gonna put your head in the sand? The apartment building's on fire. What you're not gonna listen to the fire alarm? Okay, so review. Doom scrolling review. Okay, the podcast this episode started with this. Children and teens are more likely to die by guns than anything else. CNN article, Wednesday, March 29th. And, this is The Hill. Has a story on Yahoo News. Tennessee Republicans respond to school shooting. We're not going to fix it. Okay, and now these two articles. Okay, this is going to help lead you to the inevitable solution. This headline, this article, April 2nd, 2023. Baseball phenom, 13, dies by suicide. He came home from school, left video. I hate my life, in quotes. Please, if you're feeling like you're struggling or at risk, contact somebody. Crisis lifeline, even if it's some program that your culture has to support. Baseball phenom, Covington, Indiana. Article reads, on the afternoon of the worst day of Terry Badger II's life, a text message from his son never came. So this is a kid, great at sports, bullied at school, went to school. Do you blame this on, what do you blame this on? It's not parenting. This is culture that does this. Culture is not what you have. Culture is what you do. There's another article. This is April 7th, 2023. 11-year-old, the headline here on Yahoo News. 11-year-old who died after suicide attempt in New Jersey school bathroom was bullied, mother says. So, the inevitable solution. No more schools. You can expect that Gen Beta will not be going to high school. Ain't no way. So what, you got Gen X, Gen Y, the millennials, and you got Gen Z, right there about graduating from high school. Gen Alpha is still being born. In a few years, demographers will start counting people as Gen Beta. So Generation Alpha is still being born for the next few years. So what makes you think? How is sending your kids to school? How is that a good idea? Well, you think it's a good idea now? Look, they're not going to fix it. Are you just going to wait for laws? Just wait. Let's wait for laws. Why won't our leaders do anything? Yeah, I keep calling them leaders. Yeah. Do you think that's going to make you feel better when it happens at your kid's school? Some crazy person? That the leaders didn't do anything? Schools are not going to be around in a few decades. We know why you have them, don't we? We know why you have them. Coronavirus pandemic. Made that obvious. Did it not? Right? I mean, schools aren't so much about learning. I mean, the system is there to serve the economy. It's there to detain people. It regulates the flow of competitors, young competitors, into the workforce. Those kids aren't ready to drag stones. They are not deemed ready. And you need them at school because you got to drag stones. So tell me, what's more important? Building pyramids. I'm not talking about work, doing stuff. I'm talking about building pyramids. You're doing what you're doing because you have to have millionaires. Because you think that's a defining quality of humanity. Millionaires. Royalty. People live in just ultra luxury so that people can feel like they can either live like a god or goddess or have the opportunity at least because they're the correct species. Humanity, right? In the vision of the gods, except for, right, the parts of the body that need to be chopped off. According to some of your barbaric religions. So, there's your solution. No more schools. That's the inevitable solution to school shootings. Stop sending your kids to a detention center all day, every day, where they either get bullied to death or they get shot to death or they just get abused and messed up or does it have to be to death? Isn't it bad enough if they just suffer from not being around their family? Look, this is not how humans became humans. This is a relatively new thing for Homo sapiens. If you're talking evolutionary timescales here, to take offspring and put them in these rooms, these detention areas, detention centers, to keep them there all day, most days, while parents are dragging stones, building pyramids. That's a relatively new thing. Evolution has not had time to adapt to that, to what y'all are doing. So, mass suffering. This is where children school, right? We like to think, there's lots of wonderful teachers that they still believe, a lot of wonderful teachers still believe in what they're doing on an individual basis. There's some really good people there, some of the best people in the world doing their best to help young people be competitive, to have success, or to just even have friends, to have a good life. But I'm not talking about these people. I'm talking about the education system. I'm talking about what you're doing systematically. I'm talking about these buildings, a campus. It's the place where you send your children away while you go somewhere else to drag stones. That's what I'm talking about. That's going to end. We know it's not really about learning. No one waits for school to start learning. No one stops learning after they get some diploma or they drop out. So come on, jig is up. The jig is up. What are you doing? Sending your kids to a school is a place for learning? No, a school is a place where kids go to die, to suffer, and perhaps even die early. Now, okay, oh geez, doom and gloom, doomsy, wow. But look, here's the good news. You don't have to do that. You don't have to. You don't have to have pharaohs. Millionaires are not necessary. You really love pyramid building so much that you got to stash your kids away, some school, some detention center, under the guise of education, so that you can, because you love your job, you love your career. Well, then, you better re-examine your values. How's that family values? No, we got to have schools. We got to keep sending them kids away. Got to keep my career. Look, I'm not saying parents who love their career are bad people. I mean, I get it. The only way you can attain higher levels of security for your family is to accumulate more products, more money. So you think you're helping your family, you're working to have more security, but is this really security? I mean, even if you got some fancy private school, how secure can you be if kids are getting shot or they're killing themselves? What kind of security is that? So you either love your job, right? So you got to work it. So you got to send the kids, got to have school. Or you hate your job. If you hate your job, really, I mean, if you hate working, if you hate pyramid building, most people do. I think people who say they don't, I think they're trying to convince themselves otherwise, because cultural mythology says that, work ethic. Drag them stones. But if you're not a fan of building pyramids, and yet you're sending your kids to school because you have to go off, you feel compelled to go off and build pyramids, you're sending your kids to school. How's that good? That's just rotten. What is Gen Z? For that matter, Gen Alpha. So Gen Alpha is going to go through this, and you think they're going to want to give that to their kids? I mean, that's if there's even physical means of survival on Earth by the time Doomsy gets back. So what are you doing? It's going to be solved. Don't worry. Schools are over. They'll be obsolete because the economy's going to collapse. I'm not going to bring it up on the screen. I have before, and I will again in the future, but I'll just say right now, there's that article by the physicists, peer-reviewed article. They looked at mass and energy conversion rates, and due to deforestation, civilized culture, it's game over. Done deal. You got 20 to 40 years. There's a 90% chance of collapse of civilized culture. Basically, civilized economy, which is the culture. They're saying every civilized economy is going to collapse. 90% chance of that within 20, 40 years. So look what a little virus did. Coronavirus. What it did to your economy. People had to stay home, and oh my gosh, kids couldn't go to school, and that was one of the biggest problems, right? Open up the schools, send the kids to schools. Teachers shouldn't be afraid. Why'd you need the kids at school? Well, people got to pay rent. People got to drag stones. People got to get busy, and these people are parents. What do you do with them kids? You got to send them to detention center. You got to detain them. They are not ready to be doing real life stuff, right? They're not ready to be doing real world. They need to be educated before they drag stones, right? So that was a problem. Look, the jig is up. The jig is up. Coronavirus revealed it, what the schools are really there for. So you think school's going away? If you think that's not the inevitable solution to school shootings, what is? What could be the solution? Let's just continue having, your societies, your American societies, sending your children to places where they get bullied to death, shot to death, or just bullied to misery. How many kids are just hate their life because of school that survive? They don't commit. The ultimate tragic act. For every kid, like this 11-year-old New Jersey girl who died days after an attempted suicide in a middle school bathroom, had been relentlessly bullied and reported the harassment to school officials, her mother said. 11 years old. 11-year-old girl. And then, this 13-year-old boy. This guy was like super good at sports. Baseball. Right? The American pastime. Incredible talent at that. Couldn't keep his school life from being miserable. To the ultimate level of misery. And then, of course, there's plenty of happy kids, but maybe it takes a lot of money to put your kid in a plush detention center daily. And they're happy, but what happens then? Some wacko comes in there with a weapon, and let's make laws against the weapons. Well, how about the society that you're in? How about what's going on with that? Even if you could just make all the guns disappear immediately, you still have these people amongst you who have the urge to go into these I got death traps, the places where the most helpless, the most vulnerable people, the most vulnerable. I don't think helpless works as a word, but vulnerable. Children are the most vulnerable people in society. You're still corralling them in these detention centers. And there's people who want to go in and do great harm. I mean, I don't know what... Those people will still exist. Yeah, it's good. It would be great if they didn't have weapons that made mass murder so easy. But look, that Tennessee Republican was right. He doesn't know why he was right, but he was right. They're not going to fix it. It ain't getting fixed. So schools are places where kids go to die, to get bullied, to suffer from bullying, to get bullied to death, to get shot. That's what the schools are. And you got physicists saying that every economy is going to collapse in a few decades because of deforestation. Your culture is a war. It's a war versus Earth. And waging this war versus Earth for 10,000 years, now you got soldiers going into these schools. You got these modern things you call schools. They're just detention centers for the children of pyramid builders. And you got these people just mad, crazy people that just see that as an easy target. War going on all around you. War versus Earth. War against each other. When you get bored. Or you're feeling competitive. Right? That's what's going on. That's what's going on. It's like if you measure all the animal life, land animals, I think. I'll find this article in another episode, another podcast. But if you measure up all the animals, like non-human animals are about 10% of the mass of land animals. So that's a war. You go from 2 billion to 4 billion to 8 billion. Deforestation continuing all the while. Look, the solution to school shootings, it's the same solution for deforestation. And that is this: abandon civilized culture. Abandon your culture. You be honest with Gen Alpha. And when Gen Beta comes along, be honest with them. You got to start having conversations. You got to start having conversations with them. That because people just can't stop being in the culture. You have to have another culture to be in. You need sustainable cultures. You need to come up with something. You need to stop waging war. That part's going to be easier than you think. You really don't have to give up all that much. I mean, you just have to stop supporting pharaohs. There's benefit to that. The only way to suffer under a tyrannical king is to first support the existence of kings. If you aren't supporting the existence of kings, ain't no way you're going to suffer under a tyrannical king. And look, I'm not talking. Look, the Tennessee Republican was right. They're not going to fix it. They're not going to fix anything. They want you to believe that there's different stuff going on. He's admitting they're not going to fix this pyramid building. But, they want you to believe it's in their interest as pharaohs to stay atop, to keep their altitude on the socioeconomic hierarchy. It's in their interest to make you think that there's a difference between what they're doing. There's a difference between Republicans and Democrats, just like there's a difference between communism and capitalism. Like socialism is bad or capitalism is bad, or something's good, or one of these isms, or communism just hasn't been done right, or capitalism just needs to be regulated correctly, or something, right? They want you to believe that there's a trick to it, and there's not. There's not. Let that be a relief. Okay, that's good news. Doomsy's bringing to you. There's millions of other people already know this. I'm helping you face it today, right now. The inevitable solution to school shootings is the same thing as the solution to deforestation. It's the same thing as the solution to global warming. It's the same thing as the solution to pollution in the ocean. Stop waging war. Stop building pyramids and supporting these competitive pharaohs. You don't need royalty. Your economies always produce that. Every economic system in civilized culture results in the same socioeconomic hierarchies. Every economic system. Capitalism, communism, socialism, whatever kind of ism, whatever kind of taxes or regulations you got, or however you do things, you still get the pyramid. You get the royals at the top, you get some nobles underneath them, and then all the masses of peasants, all the commoners at the bottom. Dragging stones. No different since ancient Egypt. And by the time, they were just rich. Those weren't slaves, those were workers, those were farmers. They were part-timers, they were full-timers working on them pyramids, and those pharaohs, they were just, that day's billionaires. Took a few thousand years of holy war agriculture to get there. Yeah, that's what farming is. It's holy war agriculture. So what you're doing is waging war and building pyramids. And that is going to cause the extinction. It currently is causing the extinction of a lot of animals, a lot of species. And you don't have to do it. Humanity is about more than that. So you got to let go of your delusion of grandeur. The solution, the inevitable solution to school shootings is no more schools. No more schools. You don't need the schools. You don't need detention centers for your children if you aren't building pyramids. You can stop building pyramids. Having pharaohs is not what being human is all about. I know your culture tells you otherwise, that you're not in the image of gods. The planet doesn't belong to you. Stop with the power trip. Stop trying to conquer it. Schools are a place where children are put to suffer while their parents suffer, dragging stones and building pyramids. So how is Gen Beta going to want this? How's Gen Alpha? Some of Gen Alpha is already in school. You think they want to offer it to their kids? You think that's just going to go over great? When most of Earth's forests are gone and there's more plastic than fish in the ocean, what sometime around mid-21st century, you think the economy is just going to be dandy? That parents will be saving for their kids' college education? Or that universities or... No way. No way. No, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. Your culture is collapsing. It's collapsing. So, solve itself? I don't know. It's not really going to solve itself. Collapsing. But, hey, the inevitable solution is the same one that you need for all kinds of stuff. Like survival on the planet for large mammals. Global warming, deforestation, plastic pollution. Just stop waging war. If you weren't building pyramids, you wouldn't need schools. You wouldn't have to keep your kids confined somewhere all day while you drag stones. Confined somewhere. Confined in a place where they suffer and are at risk of getting shot or bullied to the point where they want to kill themselves, and when some of them go through with it. I mean, that's just horrible. The coronavirus pandemic, it revealed why you have schools. Right? That's the big push. Does it really have a whole lot to do with learning? Or are schools more about... No. Doomsy already told you the answer to that, right? And you didn't even need me to tell you. It's just obvious. The jig is up, man. Alright. That's all the time Doomsy's got right now. I gotta bail.